Hey there, Mr. Wilford, and I just wanted to go through Chapter 1, Section 4. This one's all about domain and range. And I'm sure you've heard of domain and range before in other math classes. We want to just talk about this again a little bit and also talk about a little bit of set notation. Because when we talk about domain and range, we're talking about a set of numbers. And typically, when we talk about a set of numbers, we can talk about it in a variety of ways using inequalities. We can talk about a set of numbers with just words, and we can talk about a set of numbers with something called interval notation. And you can see here that interval notation, um, if we want to include the number that we're talking about, we use these square bracket things. When we don't want to include the number, we use the rounded brackets. And we'll take a look here at a couple of examples. But basically, when we use interval notation, we're kind of simplifying the set of numbers. And we are, it almost looks like a point, but it really is talking about a set of numbers. And so, just as a reminder, that the domain is the set of numbers that you can plug in to a function that work, and the range is a set of numbers that you get out. And so, that's very important to take a look at as we go through different types of functions. You'll want to really consider what we can plug in for the domain and what we are getting out for the range. Also, graphically, it's very convenient to take a look at domain and range. Um, you can easily take a look at a graph and decide what works for the function by looking at where the graph is defined, and what you get out looking at where the graph is defined on the y-axis. So, just again, using some interval notation. When we talk about all numbers, if we're talking about all numbers in the domain and range, we would use something like this. This is from negative infinity to positive infinity, and it looks again kind of like a point. This is another example here. All negative numbers not including zero. So negative numbers would be negative infinity, comma, zero. And because we are not including zero, we use this rounded bracket. This example here, all positive numbers including zero. So now we're including zero, so we use a square bracket, comma, 0, comma, infinity. If we want to talk about numbers between 1 and 4, including 1 and 4, we would write something like this with square brackets. When we talk about numbers between 5 and 6, but not including 5 and 6, we use these rounded brackets here. Again, this looks like a point, a coordinate point, but when we're talking about domain and range and interval notation, we would use something like this. There are some other examples here. We're not going to get into this whole thing a whole lot, the union, but basically it's just kind of combining two sets of numbers. So here in this example, it would be from numbers from 1 to 2, including 1, as well as numbers between 10 and 25, including 10 and 25. We don't see that a ton, but they just have it listed there. And again, just remember that as we go through different functions, we are going to talk about a different domain and range for those functions. And again, looking at some graphs here, if you look at this, y equals the square root of x, this would be the graph of that. And again, you can think about, well, what numbers can I plug in and what numbers am I going to get out? If you want to look at that graphically, you can see here that I am talking about, for the domain, the x values from 0 to positive infinity, and range would be from 0 to positive infinity as well. And again, you can go through and look at some of these different examples, and you have a nice video there that you can review as well. And again, some examples